This is today's number 9 most urgent vulnerability on the Daily Ranked CVE Brief, where we look at what to patch first, ranked by real exploitation signal, CVE-2026-73570, first EPSS, and CVSS. CVE 2026-73570 matters because it is not just a theoretical bug in a background component. It is a remote code execution issue in Zimbra Collaboration Suite, a mail and collaboration platform that often sits directly on the internet and handles trusted organizational communications. The official description says an unauthenticated attacker can send specially crafted SMTP requests that may result in arbitrary operating system commands running as the Zimbra user. The score is high, the conditions are specific, and it is already in CISA's known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. That combination earns a serious, immediate review. CVE 2026-73570 is a remote code execution vulnerability in Zimbra Collaboration, also referred to as ZCS. The official NVD description says the issue exists before version 10.1.20, but only when the optional Zimbra SNMP package is installed and SNMP notifications are enabled. The weakness is classified as CVE-78, which means improper neutralization of special elements used in an operating system command. In plain English, software is taking input it should treat as data, and that input can influence how an operating system command is built or processed. If the software does not sanitize that input correctly, an attacker may be able to make the server interpret part of the input as a command. Here, that command execution is described as running as the Zimbra user. Verdict: this is a high-priority remote code execution flaw because it can be reached over the network without authentication or user interaction. The CVSS score is 8.9 high, and the most important part of the vector is the reachability. AVN, PRN, and UIN mean the attack is network accessible, does not require prior privileges, and does not depend on a victim clicking something. That is the kind of combination defenders treat with urgency on internet-facing mail infrastructure. The second key point is impact. The vector shows high confidentiality and high integrity impact, with lower but still present availability impact, and the scope is changed. Practically, that means a successful exploit can move beyond a simple application error and create meaningful risk to data exposure and system trust. The reason this rises above routine patch management is CISA-KEV status. Being in the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog means defenders should treat it as a real-world exploitation concern, not just a lab finding. We are not attributing activity, naming attackers, or describing campaigns here because those details are not in the provided data. But KEV status is still a strong operational signal. Organizations should move from assessment to action. The EPSS percentile provided is 0.61471, which places it above a meaningful portion of vulnerabilities in terms of predicted exploitation likelihood. EPSS is not a guarantee, and it is not a substitute for your own exposure analysis, but paired with KEV and an 8.9 CVSS score, it tells you this belongs in the urgent queue. Conceptually, the path described by NVD starts with SMTP, which is important because mail services are commonly reachable from outside the organization. The attacker does not need to log in, and the flaw does not require a user to open a message or click a link. The dangerous transition happens during SNMP notification processing. When the optional Zimbra SNMP package is present and SNMP notifications are enabled, untrusted input from specially crafted SMTP requests may be processed in a way that is not properly sanitized before operating system command handling. We are intentionally not giving payloads or procedural exploit instructions. The defender's takeaway is simple. If your Zimbra deployment meets those conditions, exposed SMTP plus enabled SNMP notification processing creates a reachable path from unauthenticated network input to command execution as the Zimbra user. Start with the exact exposure conditions from the description. You are looking for Zimbra collaboration before 10.1.20 with the optional Zimbra SNMP package installed and SNMP notifications enabled. If any of those conditions are uncertain, treat that uncertainty as work to resolve quickly. Check your asset inventory for Zimbra systems, especially those exposed to the internet or reachable from less trusted network segments. Confirm whether SMTP is accessible from outside and whether the deployment uses SNMP notifications. For version-specific guidance, do not rely on assumptions or memory. Use the vendor's Security Center and security advisories as the source of truth for supported releases, fixed versions, and operational guidance. If you outsource mail operations, ask the provider directly whether these exposure conditions apply. The primary remediation is to patch Zimbra collaboration according to the vendor advisory, with special attention to systems before 10.1.20 that meet the Zimbra SNMP and SNMP notification conditions. If the optional package is not required, remove or disable it using your approved administrative process. If SNMP notifications are not operationally necessary, turn them off. Reduce exposure wherever possible. Mail services may need to receive SMTP, but management and monitoring paths should not be broadly reachable. Review firewall rules, segmentation, and monitoring integrations around affected servers. Because the potential execution context is the Zimbra user, also review what that account can access and whether file permissions, credentials, and service privileges are tighter than they need to be. Patch first, then harden the surrounding blast radius. Detection should focus on the described path and the expected outcome. Review mail and application logs for unusual SMTP request patterns around Zimbra systems, especially malformed, repetitive, or otherwise abnormal traffic that does not match typical mail flow. Look for SNMP notification activity that is unexpected for the environment, spikes in notification processing, or errors occurring during notification handling. On the host, monitor for processes started by the Zimbra user that do not match normal service behavior, especially shell activity, system utilities, or unexpected child processes. Also watch for new outbound network connections from the mail server, because command execution can be followed by attempts to retrieve tools, move data, or contact external infrastructure. Normal should be boring. Mail services handling mail, expected monitoring integrations, and predictable process trees. Bottom line, CVE 2026-73570 is not a generic low-context vulnerability. It is a high-severity remote code execution issue in Zimbra collaboration tied to specific but important conditions, versions before 10.1.20, the optional Zimbra SNMP package, and enabled SNMP notifications. The CVSS score is 8.9 high. The attack can be unauthenticated over the network, and CISA KEV status means defenders should assume this deserves immediate attention. Confirm exposure, patch using vendor guidance, disable what you do not need, and monitor for suspicious SMTP, SNMP notification, and Zimbra user process activity. If this was useful, subscribe to the Daily Ranked CVE Brief. Every day, we focus on what to patch first, ranked by real exploitation signal. The full ranked report is linked in the description.